Hey guys, thanks for listening. I'm Zoe Rusea Moreno and this is Architacora, a podcast dedicated to the narrative in visual designs and all its in-betweens. I hope you guys enjoy it. This show will be available in all podcast providers, so please give it a chance and subscribe. During the design process, there is this driver that motivates us to create an idea. The idea is what pushes us to move forward. And moving forward is what allows us to evolve as designers. In this episode, we will focus on the most important tool that an architect has, the imagination and desire to create a space with purpose. We will discuss the opportunity and the emergence of different means of expression, which can help or hinder the design process. In this conversation, we will highlight the use of these tools along with the use of storytelling. And all this combined gives reason as to why one becomes an architect. Today I'm gonna focus on talking about this subject that is normally not so shared in the architects community. It is actually a conversation that is present in all stages of the design process, but is more implicit than spoken. However, without a doubt, I think it's the tool that causes the most impact in the creation of the whole. Nevertheless, I can't help but also think that in turn, it is also the tool that goes most unnoticed, and that is storytelling. Back in architecture school, I remember that we were always told that we had to explore different ideas to develop the decision process during studio hours. We always needed to be present, so it was a constant trial of experimentations and mistakes. What they didn't tell us, though, was the many other concerns and subjects that we needed to deal with at the same time. How we needed to take advantage of each of them in order to expand our knowledge of general things. Studying architecture is not just studying architecture. This particular career gives us the task to try to understand several other specialties that no other careers does, such as math, physics, social, political, and even psychological, at least in a general way. And only when we start putting all these connotations together, we begin to consider ourselves architects. And we have to admit that this is a little bit intense, and not many other careers have the same mental strain in the person as architecture does. There are so many obstacles, so many things that one says if it's worth it or not. Why choose to go through so much work and so much time for a career that in the end you don't know if it's worth it? At least that's how you see it when you're a student. And well, what I now say, and I still think, is that we choose the careers that we choose is because we believe at the time that it has a purpose. It gives us a sense of direction, a method to our creativity. But with the stress of school, we sometimes forget to keep looking for motivation and move forward with it. But that's a whole conversation that we can deviate from. So let's keep focusing on the college experience. In school, there are guidelines that the students need. However, the directive is different depending on the educational style. What was interesting though is that during that student's exploration, at least when I was in school, is that it was always tied to experimentation of creative means. What do I mean by this? I mean that we needed to practice with carpentry, 3D printers, cardboard models. So basically the trend was based on production with purpose. The philosophy of design is in everything, but when you're a student, you normally don't see that. What you want to do is produce something to reach the guidelines given by the professors that reach the final goal of a study. You want to get good grades, you want to pass the other subjects. In the end, you want to graduate. So studio now is all about utilizing the new media, and it requires way more exposition. And although production has exponentially escalated, the concept of why has been declining among the students since they have so much access to data that they're getting lost in the decision making. The way I see it is that today visual medium is more present in the student's life. So in turn, college professors are facing this dilemma where in the end, they have to create a class, but at the same time, show visual results. They have to give a lot of information in a very short period of time. So for this reason, the students feel monopolized by the many topics. They cannot add their own personalities into their designs. Most of them go ahead and instinctively they have to deliver. They feel that they need to do something, anything. So the logical part is lost, especially for those in the first year. That guideline and the purpose of the why is still there, but it's being misused. For example, the kids think that they need to create something in specific software that looks good for social media or take a photo in a specific angle so they don't see that they didn't finish the project, or even add crazy colors to make it stand out, but it doesn't tell you anything. And the students think that they cannot give you a reason because there's a lack of guidance throughout their journey as architects, because there's only so much a professor can do during the time studio. So the narrative is being lost and is being pushed to the background because everyone thinks that they should know it, to the point that they're being oversaturated with it. And there's so much information on the internet that anyone can look on YouTube or Lydia or general forums about getting knowledge on 3D programs and general software. But that's just it. That's just exposition. There's no basic structure. And this causes a disruption that can be harmful for the ones that are looking for the media and are beginners. And then this question appears as, will it be a matter of just grabbing specs and understanding software, where architects will become producers instead of creators, where in the end it's just propose solutions but not generating new ideas, and where the story is lost and only the product remains? These are so many unanswered questions that happen on and on that could be harmful to the creative process, where in despite that we're more connected than ever, in reality, we are more disconnected with our human side. Now, moving on to a more positive aspect of the conversation, it is good to engage in open and honest conversations about solving the problem from the source. We need to develop a pedagogy in a way that reinvents the ones that are existent. But now more than ever, we're developing this relationship between ideas and the production of work. So the theme is to focus on areas where the students can improve without feeling overwhelmed with all these other guidelines. It is a conversation that is not simple at all, or can have all the answers, because in the end, our visions as designers is what will give us the answers as to what can we do to advance. I am very passionate about academics, and I'm always looking for answers to outside questions so the future generation of designers can continue to contribute in a different flow of ideas so we can grow as a community. We need to ask ourselves how to re-inspire students and create this link to design for the purpose and relationships that in turns will redirect this oversaturation of the visual media. So new architecture students, actually any type of student that needs to visualize their ideas, can organize themselves and create the right narratives for what they need. So the proposal for this conversation and the episode is to create a series of ideals or just a general manual with basic information about the things that they need to develop to continue this trend. There is no structure system that classifies these connotations in a way that is easy to understand, or at least is not broad enough. The answer is very simple. Organizing yourself on how to find solutions to your problems is a personal matter, but it's always good to have other points of view that can add to your repertoire. Through studies and conversations, I was able to formulate some reference points to start that collection of notes that could help create a visual design trend with a narrative focus. Or if you already have this type of inclination, maybe this can refresh your memory. The first thing on the list is just to stay on top of the creative world by using the tools that we have today, the internet. For example, you can check the AIA website and see if there's meetups every single month. You can go to conventions, watch local events that are happening in your vicinity that center around art and that type of visual narrative that can fill you up. Nowadays, there's so many big platforms that talk about the architecture community and the events that are happening. For example, Architecture, Tech Talks, Architalks. Those are the sites that the students can now go to and interact with, where they can ask questions to things that they cannot do in studio. That way they can expand their repertoire and just have a new outlook in a point of view that they didn't know before. Another point to the list, and this might sound cliche, is just to stay in studio and talk to each other. Because now more than ever, students are no longer staying in studio because of the access that they have with the computer and the internet. They're starting to think that the physical medium is unnecessary because what is expected of them is very digital. But being with other people helps develop this sense of scale versus the sense of a site. Besides, It gives some healthy competition that is always necessary, and it generates suggestions. All in all, this will help you create a good working environment for once you graduate. The third point to this list, and the one that I consider most important, is just your personal narrative and how you see yourself. What are your advantages, your disadvantages, and your personal goals? Use all this to generate your own design ideology. The fourth point, but no less important than the rest, was something that I learned after I graduated from school. And that was keeping a journal or just a log of the general things that I needed to accomplish that day. Keeping a journal is important, or some type of organization, because it helps you to have it written down. You are able to see it and produce it instead of just wandering around per day and just winging it. Of course, each person takes their own way to organize themselves, so I am not saying that this is the solution and it applies to everyone. But you have to create your own system that works for you so you're able to be more productive. But of course, I'm just telling you these points because they come as a general observations that I had in the media. Only when I graduated and I had the opportunity to explore the professional environment along with different styles, I was able to realize that the personal definition is the most important thing for the designer. Because once you find yourself, you don't need to lie or make excuses. Because in the end, you're you, and that's what gives the design value. The goal as an architect is not to just create a space. It's about engaging with the user and create an experience. An architect always has to observe the means that surrounds him. But at the same time, while doing that, they cannot afford to lose their identity. I would like to propose some open-ended questions that will inspire us or might create another discussion for future episodes that help us to continue this conversation. So, I would like to ask the audience, by the end of this episode, what do you think are your sources of inspiration to create anything that you have in mind? What do you think are your needs, your ideas, your goals? Do you believe in creating a methodology to anything? As these great architects like Renzo Piano, Bjork, Neri Oxman, Jean Gang, even Danielle Libeskind, or any other architects that you can think about, the idea of the narrative and the development is the most important thing, and it must always be present for the inspiration. After all, I certainly believe that architects are dreamers. Because no matter the negative and the impediments that goes through our way, we always try to find the answer somewhat. Because we want to solve problems. We want to improve the user experience and create something anew. So the idea that we're losing this through the new medias means that we need to adapt to changes at a faster pace. And this is an issue that is super important. And in order to get to the source and evolve as professionals, we need to cement the narrative within us and nurture it. Helping the future of our community is the most important thing. This is not a conversation where I want to focus on the mistakes and problems that the education community has. It's about the narrative and the design and how interesting together they are. This is such a beautiful subject that is such a pity that we do not talk about it more often. And that's the point why I focus this episode around these important links for designers. But it's also not that I'm giving you all the solutions to this big of a problem and the lack of communication that exists in all the medias, despite the fact that, again, we're more connected than ever. I do not want to enforce the psychology or be cynical or even be definitive about this, because such as everything, all these conversations continue to evolve. That's why the topic of speaking and communicating is so important. The theme is to be an architect that relates to their environment, whatever that environment might be, so they can continue to evolve to the next stage. And the truth is that in reality, this subject is not even applying completely to architects or designers. Eventually, this type of career is gonna be called something completely different because of the additive measures that it encompasses. So this conversation starts of what is it gonna become when you add narrative and storytelling and visualization and all these other things that surround this magnificent career and crazy and powerful, that in the end, you start wondering, what is next? What am I gonna become? And I don't have the answer for that. But these are the thoughts that makes me so excited to find about it. Well, guys, and that's a wrap for episode 0001. I think it was a pretty good one. So please be sure to visit iTunes and give a bright, amazing, cool rating. And also, remember to write a little review. It can be either a comment or a question, whatever you feel like it. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye!